Prime Minister like to go grocery shopping together, Mr. Speaker. And if you had, you would know that, of course, food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than they did in the United States during the last 4 years, and that gap grew in line with the carbon tax. The leader of the NDP apparently likes to shop at Metro, for which his brother's company is the chief lobbyist. So maybe the leader of the NDP can tell us, 24 Liberal MPs have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Will the leader of the NDP finally vote for a carbon tax election?
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
he's got the Freeland face, the fart-smelling face.
Let me reiterate that multiple analysts, economists, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer have indicated that lowering inflation has made it easier on Canadians, and the price on pollution that delivers the Canada carbon rebate to Canadians right across the country and puts more money in their pockets is actually helping Canadians with affordability. But if the Leader of the Opposition really wanted to help with affordability, he wouldn't have voted against dental care. Right. He wouldn't have voted against a national school food program that's saving hundreds of dollars a year to parents right across the country.
Come on, Pierre.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, even Liberal MPs know now, because their constituents keep telling them, that the carbon tax is driving up the cost of food. They wanted to go to caucus today and tell the Prime Minister that Canadians are literally starving, some eating out of dumpsters, because of the carbon tax. But he sent out his immigration minister to attack them, saying that they are, quote, garbage. What's garbage is the Prime Minister's record doubling housing costs, driving up food prices, and forcing people to eat out of dumpsters. Will he stop treating his own MPs and Canadians like garbage?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I think the leader of the Conservative Party shouldn't be bragging that none of his MPs have asked him to get a security clearance so that he can actually protect his party from foreign interference. That none of his MPs have spoken out. That having one of their members go down to Florida on an all-expenses-paid trip by an extreme anti-abortion church is just fine for all of their MPs. And that, quite frankly, none of them have any issue with a member on their front bench dining with a neo-Nazi. Mr. Speaker, I would hope some of his members in his caucus would speak up about some of the problems.
And I ask the Honourable Member from Wellington Halton Hills to please not speak out of turn repeatedly during this question. He's an honourable and very well-respected member. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister, who has a lifelong record of racist outbursts, is now coming unglued on the floor of the House of Commons. The question was about the 24 Liberal MPs in his caucus that are trying to speak out against his quadrupling of the carbon tax, not because they care about the cost of living of their constituents, but because they're worried they're going to lose the election. So if the Prime Minister is so confident in quadrupling the carbon tax, why won't he call a carbon tax election now?
We might see it, man. We might see the Bloc.
Our price on pollution not only
put something together,
reduces emissions and helps fight climate change, but it grows the economy and investments, and it puts more money in the pockets of middle-class Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, what we've seen from the Parliamentary Budget Officer is the Canada carbon rebate puts more money back in the pockets of Canadian families than it costs them in the federal price on pollution. And that is exactly what the Leader of the Opposition wants to cut. He wants to cut affordability for Canadians. He wants to cut the fight against climate change. That's not how you build a strong future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Taxes and housing costs. Now, on that subject, the Prime Minister created a $4 billion so-called housing accelerator that gave hundreds of millions of dollars to big city politicians across the country. Toronto got the money, and construction went down 20%. Winnipeg got the money, construction went down 15%. Vancouver got the money, construction went down 19%. Ottawa got the money. Construction went down 10%. Mr. Speaker, when I was the housing minister, we built 194,000 homes. Why won't he follow my common sense example?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Damn.
The member opposite was Stephen Harper's failed housing minister. He built 6 affordable housing units across the country. So we'll take no lessons from them on housing. They would rather pick fights rather than invest in the kinds of changes that are improving density and zoning, using public lands, accelerating red tape so that people can get more affordable housing built quicker right across the country. It takes actions and investments to build up this country. That's exactly what we're doing in responsible ways. All he's offering is fights with the provinces and municipalities and cuts to services Canadians rely on.
I mean, we got to fix our deficits, dude.
Mr. Speaker, he just accidentally told the truth. He said he's accelerating red tape. Well, he sure is doing that, but he's not accelerating his math lessons. He's always admitted that he's been bad with numbers. I have the documents from Stats Canada's website. That's part of his government that shows that in 2015, there were 461,000 housing completions. And the average rent was only $973 for a one-bedroom, half of what it is today. Given that I delivered so many affordable homes, why won't the Prime Minister follow my common sense plan to build the homes, not the bureaucracy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it says something about the level of confidence the previous Prime Minister had in that member when Stephen Harper used to say the federal government has no responsibility around housing and then asks him to be their housing minister. That's perhaps why he delivered only 6 affordable homes over the course of their years in government. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we have stepped in densification, in cutting red tape, in creating more housing starts right across the country, working with municipalities and provinces to solve this housing crisis, while all he offers is cuts and breaks to wealthy landlords.
There we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is this Liberal Prime Minister that said a year ago that the federal government has no responsibility for housing.
Right.
Of course, he said that after he had completed the doubling of housing costs. And then, speaking of housing ministers, he went on to point the guy who had lost track of 1 million people coming into the country, who had allowed a 300% increase in population growth against the warnings about housing from his own department. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister plans to reverse and swallow himself whole on immigration. Will he complete the job by firing his housing minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've continued to step up and invest in housing by working with provinces and municipalities right across the country, because of course we know that actions of previous governments of Conservative and Liberal stripes underinvested for many years in housing, which is why we're in the situation we're in, a situation not dissimilar to many advanced democracies around the world. That is exactly why we have stepped up to put money on the table for municipalities as they change their densification rules and zoning laws to accelerate the process of building housing and continue to solve this housing crisis that Canadians are facing from coast to coast to coast.
That's right.
The Prime Minister is admitting that his immigration policies have been totally incompetent. In fact, the ratio of new people to new homes reached its highest level in recorded history last year, after his then immigration minister, now housing minister, ignored the warnings of his own department. According to a new Concordia University report, the rent is expected to rise to $7,500 in Vancouver and $5,500 in Toronto if the trajectory continues. Will he reverse course now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the great advantages of Canada in the world, and of Canadians in the world, is that we continue to be a country that understands that immigration is a source of opportunity and growth and richness for this country. One of the other great advantages we have is we have an immigration system that is able to adjust to different realities. In the years after the pandemic, there was a need for more temporary workers, there was a desire for more international students, and we let more in, working with the provinces and businesses across the country. As we see the situation shift, as the labour market shifts, we're making changes to the immigration system so that we can keep its support.
That's right.
They are not happy with that.
The opposition.
Speaker, there's nothing compassionate about it. Inviting people without a place for them to live or health care for them to have or jobs that provide them with paychecks. He has destroyed our immigration system through his own personal incompetence and destroyed a 150-year common sense consensus between Liberals and Conservatives on that subject. He cannot fix what he broke on immigration, housing, or anything else because he's busy fighting his own caucus. Why won't he call a carbon tax election so that we can restore Canada's promise, where anyone who comes here and works hard can have a good life, a safe street, and a warm home?
Very Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the work we are focused on is on the middle class and people working hard to join it, and we have delivered over these past years. And in these times of global strife and pressures, that is exactly what we are doubling down on investing in building homes, investing in strengthening our immigration system so that it can match the challenges we're in right now, in moving forward on putting more money in people's pockets, even as we create strong jobs and growth for the future. The Bank of Canada just really reduced interest rates because inflation is now down to low inflation once again. We are managing this country responsibly. We're continuing to invest in its future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canada makes every single one of us a promise. If you work hard, you get a good life. That promise, like everything else after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, is broken. Now, he's broken countless promises, but this one is different. This wasn't his promise to break. It belonged to all of us. Now that he has destroyed the immigration, the housing market, the cost of living, will he call a carbon tax election so that we can bring home Canada's promise?
Wow. That deserves some W's down in the chat, folks.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Leader of the Opposition pushing a brokenist vision of Canada that is simply not aligned with the reality. Yes, Canadians are struggling like people are all around the world after years of high inflation and disrupted supply chains and global conflicts has weighed heavily on everyone around the world. But Canadians continue to see opportunities. Canadians continue to see investments by a government that believes in them, whether it's investing in green jobs of the future or investing in programs and supports like dental and childcare that make a difference that the Conservatives continue to vote against.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Or do we have? Do you have any note?
For Pierre.
Excuse me, I apologize to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, brokenist. It's not even a word. He's even breaking the English language.
What the heck?
He broke the housing market by doubling the costs. He broke the cost of food by jacking up the carbon tax and increasing prices 36% faster than in the United States. He's broken our immigration system. He's breaking the bank with his doubling of the debt. Even his own caucus members think that everything is broken. Why don't we have a carbon tax election to decide?
The Very Honourable Prime Minister.
While the Leader of the Opposition is focused on exploiting the struggles of Canadians that are very real, he's not offering a single solution to support them. He's offering to take away the Canada carbon rebate that is putting more money in their pockets and fighting climate change successfully while it grows the economy. He's offering to cancel the dental care program that has helped close to 1 million Canadians already access dental care. He's planning on canceling the child care that has brought child care costs down to $10 a day in so many parts of the country and created spaces everywhere. He stands against the programs and supports for Canadians, while at the same time he says Canada's broken.
That's right.
The honourable member from Burnaby South.
The global community is shocked. This week, Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir called for Gaza to be emptied of Palestinians. He also called for expanding illegal settlements in Gaza. In fact, his colleague, Minister Smotrich, said that starving civilians is justified. Shameful. Enough is enough. What will it take for the Prime Minister to impose severe sanctions on Netanyahu and his extremist ministers?
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the violence in the Middle East
MPs are definitely not united on this topic.
cannot continue to see civilians killed, innocents wiped out, communities destroyed. We need to make sure there is a ceasefire in Gaza and in Lebanon. We need to see the path once again towards a two-state solution where a peaceful Israel lives alongside a peaceful Palestinian state. That is Canada's position. That continues to be what we fight for every single day, to bring a global consensus together, to protect lives, to get humanitarian aid in, to release hostages, and to end this conflict once and for all.
I'm going to ask, again, all members, including the member from
Yeah, he stumbled through that one.
speak out when he does not have the floor.